Yo, what's up guys, the Insane Game Freak here to finally get through this whole best Pokemon anime rivals thing that I've been dicking around with for, I don't know, about 4 months probably. So, I think the way I'm going to do this is kind of announce the winner and then go over why I have one person, Soran. I believe, I always mess up his name, which is funny because he's been watching my videos for a while and I've been seeing him for a while. Soran X Kraken, I believe that's how I pronounce his name, has his own opinion and viewpoint on the whole thing, and then I'll give my impressions. So let's first off start with the results. So, with 31% of the votes, which means the person who lost, I am actually surprised by this because that means the Pokemon fandom has grown. I mean, granted, we saw that with May versus Misty, because I'm surprised as fuck that May won that. But well, then again, that is my fan base, and if it is my fan base, it wouldn't be too out of the ordinary to believe that people would more lean towards my opinion would like this versus people towards the popular or the nostalgia filled opinion. But 31% of the votes went to Gary, and I'm surprised by that because I thought people hated Paul. Which yes, that means Paul won with, oh, the irony here. Paul won with 69% of the votes. So, it's a sex thing, get it? Alright. Anyways, so we're going to play Soran-san's viewpoint of who he thinks is better, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. Because I don't think I've actually voiced it in a video how I really feel about this. I mean, it's kind of implied which one I prefer, but let's go in. So, Soran-san, take it away!
Yo, what is up, Croxon clan members and others who have stumbled upon this video? I'm Soran Croxon, and the fan needs to stop right now because it's really annoying me. I can see it in the corner of my eye through the mirror. But today we have okay, so the Insane Game Freak is doing another one of those comparison videos for the Pokemon series, and we are doing rivals this time. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do another one. Previously I did the ones for the female companions, so rivals. So today we have Gary versus Paul. This is the first round of the thing that he's doing. Now, for me, it was a tough decision, to be honest. I actually was waiting for him to do this because he had announced it a while ago that he was planning to do this, and then he just announced it today. And I was like debating, and I was looking, I was thinking, you know, and I love Gary. I'm not gonna lie, the dude is awesome. But for this round, I'm gonna have to give the victory to Paul. Now, I know I'm probably gonna get hate for that, but listen, you got chill. To me, Gary was the perfect friend slash rival for Ash. Yes, because of their past together, they already had a previous connection and all this stuff, and it made their rivalry really good. And the fact that Gary was always one step ahead of Ash and always showed off to Ash, you know, that made the relationship work. It was great. It was great to see that. But in my opinion, I mean, regardless of how much hate I throw at Sinnoh, Paul, to me, pushed Ash to his limits. It was one of those rivalries where you could see the opposites clashing, which is exactly what Paul does. He is the exact opposite of Ash, so his methods for training Pokemon are the opposite of Ash's, meaning that Ash has to improve his way so that it can overcome this other strategy, so he can prove to Paul that his is a better strategy, or his better way of training, and the way he acts with his Pokemon. And we see this right from the beginning with Ash and Gary. We got to see Gary's side of things, where Gary was like, I'm going to be ahead of you at every step of the way. We got that. But with Paul, you got to see his attitude towards training Pokemon from the get-go. And not only that, but he had prior experience, which meant that even though the first match for Ash in the Sinnoh region, it was a loss slash tie, but it was reason. It made sense. Paul's a veteran by this point. He's already been to the other regions where Ash has been, and he's also participated in the leagues in the other regions like Ash. The only one that he didn't do was the Battle Frontier, so maybe he didn't have as much experience as Ash, but he was still a competent trainer, right? He had already like a bunch of Pokemon and all this stuff. So so right from the get go, we have a veteran versus a veteran, even though they made Ash stupid in this region. But it was still veteran versus veteran, and and just all the fight. I mean, Gary and Ash never really battled until. I mean, they had their little like contests, like competitions and stuff, and they never really battled. I mean, it's been a while, but if I recall, until the Johto League, which meant that even though they were rivals, it's more about like who could get ahead of the other. Whereas with Paul, Ash battled him multiple times, and Paul always came out victorious. Which kind of made Paul be like, see, my way is the better way, which meant Ash had to again try to improve himself so that the next time he battles Paul, he could trump him this time. And and then the league match was amazing. I mean, not to say the Gary versus Ash fight was cool, but the clash of ideals in the league was I don't want to say it was better, but it was more defining than the one with Gary and Ash. Well, that one was just I finally caught up to you, Gary, and I'm now going to surpass you kind of like battle. Whereas the other one is like, now I'll prove to you that my way is better than your way kind of thing. So it was, I mean, they both have their positives. But I feel like the fact that Ash has to prove himself or prove that his way is the better way is better than better than him just going, I now surpass you, even though I technically was better than you to begin with. Because as we all know, Ash got farther than Gary in the first league, so I technically feel like he was already superior to Gary by the time they battled in the Johto League. But Gary does show up again and does show off that he's still training, even though he turned into a professor, or like he still has the knowledge that he had prior to becoming a professor. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to try to explain my reasons for Paul, but it's just that Paul's ideals and the fact that they clash with Ash makes him to me the better rival of the two. Not to say Gary's not bad. Yeah, I mean Gary's bad. Gary's amazing. Paul's Pokemons were pretty cool too. I do have to say that. I mean, at least he gave Torterra a chance to shine because as we all know, Ash's Torterra was garbage. Like straight up, like they made Torterra the Torkoal of Gen 4, which is kind of sad because both Pokemon are pretty good at what they do. It's just I don't know why the fact that the writers had to have this one outshine everything else. It's like kind of weird. Because I really wanted to see Torterra. Torterra was not a bad Pokemon in Gen 4, like at all. And so when Ash got Turtwig, I was really excited to see where this was going to go. Even though I was like, oh, he's probably not going to evolve, but then he did. And then it sucked because they tried to focus everything on Infernape, which was another thing. I should probably bring that up right now. Infernape. The Chimchar saga probably made this rivalry better than the one with Ash and Gary because they didn't have this where Gary had a Pokemon that Ash then had. Paul's way of training Chimchar in order to acquire the power of Blaze and control it and become this beast Pokemon didn't work, but the transition from Paul's way to get to Ash's way Ash was able then to prove, hey, I was able to get Chimchar to control Blaze and then become this overpowered Pokemon that's able to destroy everything. I mean, if you guys, like I said, they really tried to push Infernape to be like, hey, this is the one you should be focused on. Because even the battle between him and Paul, Infernape's the one that did the most damage out of any Pokemon in his team. If everybody remembers, like he defeated the, what was it? He the gosh, I can't remember. Um, I think it was Agron. Yeah, I think it was Agron. He defeated Ninjask. He defeated the Electivire. He defeated um. What else did Paul have in that match? Because I know Buizel defeated the Gastrodon, and then Gliscor defeated the Drapion. Oh, Frostlass was Pikachu. But anyway, 3 out of the 6 Pokemon were defeated by Infernape. So yeah, like that was Ash saying in your face, I was able to train Chimchar and evolve him into this beast Pokemon, and then just annihilate your team. I don't know, like that was another like a showing of, hey, my way is better than yours. Um, so yeah, like, and the fights, all the fights that they had were pretty cool. Like, again, and you got to see Paul, like, I mean, kind of change. I mean, his way was still his way throughout the series, but it kind of fluctuated at certain times, especially like when he talked to Cynthia and when they had that conversation going. Um, and then during the double battle competition, where Ash, the whole taking control of the battle because Paul had given up, when they were in the, what was the other one? I know there was another time where you saw him. Oh, when he was battling Brandon, and the fact that he had to acknowledge Ash because Ash was able to beat Brandon and he couldn't. So I mean, there was times where you could see Paul like kind of question himself, but then he would still stay as Paul, catching the strongest and releasing the weak, and only using what he felt was good enough. And then at the final step, when he battled Ash, and Ash won that one-on-one battle between Ash and Infernape against Paul and his Electivire, that final clash, which finally proved that Ash was the better trainer, Paul finally realized, hey, maybe my way isn't the only way, and then acknowledged Ash one final time before leaving to get better at training Pokemon. So, I mean, it was kind of like a nice ending so, I don't know. To me personally, Paul is the better rival. Um, actually, him and Gary have some similar Pokemon. I just noticed that. Anyways, that's not even what matters. Pokemon wise, it's kind of mixed. I like both the Pokemons that each one has. But yeah, so that's basically it. This is really short video. It's like really short. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think I had a lot more to say about the other characters because there was a lot more to say about the other characters. Or like the female companions because they were with, or they were with Ash, meaning that you saw them more often than the rivals. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my thoughts. Like I said, I will give this victory to Paul just because it pushed Ash to his limits, whereas Gary was more of trying for him to catch up. Like Ash was just trying to catch up, whereas with Paul, it was literally like, I'm going to show you my way is better than yours, which I feel is a better one of the two. But anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I'm sorry if it was like a ramble, so it was weird. It was really crazy. I didn't really plan this out as good as I should have. But hopefully for the next one, if I decide to do it for the next one, depending on what he chooses to be the other two rivals, it might be better. So, but anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been Soran the Croxton. Leave your thoughts down below. Which one of these two is your favorite? And don't forget to check out his video. I'll probably put a link after he uploads his in like the description or something. Or I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when that happens. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been Soran the Croxton, and I'll see you guys in later videos.
Okay. So that's his opinion, and ironically my opinion kind of coincides with it because mine is almost the exact same, at least in terms of the base idea that I do think Paul is a better rival than Gary. I don't agree necessarily with everything he said because of certain things that kind of get crossed up. Like, for example, I don't believe that the whole point of Ash and Paul's rivalry was just so Ash could prove that his way was better. That was one of the things I liked about their rivalry, that by the end of it, it just became a mutual respect. If anyone remembers when when you first start seeing Paul's training methods and Ash saw Paul's training methods, Ash fucking hated the way... Ash thought he was pretty much one of those villains who abuses their Pokemon. I even remember a few times in which he actually tries to go out of his way to get his Pokemon to, like, betray him for all intents and purposes. Because I think he does it with the Torterra. I remember the Torterra, like, I think it's like when Ash has a Grotto, and Paul has his Torterra. He tries to go, oh, Torterra, you can be free now. You don't have to deal with that jerk Paul abusing you all the time. And he comes to find out that it's not that Paul abuses his Pokemon. He's hard on his Pokemon, but his Pokemon still like and respect him. And that's kind of the point. Ash thought it was just this, oh, he's just being a dick to everyone. Like, it turned into a situation in which Ash realized that Paul's way isn't just like a mean, unrealistic, you shouldn't do things this way mentality. It's just a different way than he does it. Versus the same thing when Ash, the difference was that Ash came to realize Paul better just through watching him and interacting with him. Whereas Paul he was coming to respect Ash, but Ash had to curb stomp the shit out of him to prove his point because Paul's a thick-headed motherfucker. And see, that's the thing I liked about the rivalry, and I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Paul's rivalry is a much more well-developed rivalry than Ash and Gary. Gary only represented an unachievable goal for him, which was the fact that he would never be better than Gary. That was it. Like, Gary served no actual emotional grounding purpose for him except for the fact that they knew each other when they were kids. But even that, and what kills it is that, like, it's supposed to be that weird type of friendship rivalry. The problem is they don't interact enough for you to get that. Like, you can even see it in some of the Paul-related episodes. They use similar gimmicks they used with Gary, except they used Paul a lot more, and they gave him a lot more of a fleshed out. We even got to meet his older brother, and that whole little complex he has over there. That's what made Paul interesting instead of with Gary, where it was like, oh, Gary freaking got the badge before I did. Oh, Gary has more Pokemon than I do. Oh, all of his Pokemon evolved. Oh, he has all these hot ladies and he can drive a car. Gary is like meme worthy because Gary unrealistically had way too much in the original anime. But then again, that's one of the reasons why the original anime is flawed. I know a lot of people don't want to admit that, but the original anime is flawed. Gary himself is like a major flaw. He's 10 years old, has a group of cheerleaders, can drive a fucking car, has 10 badges even though he should only have 8. And for some reason, people didn't go, what was wrong with the first season? Gary himself can make the argument for what is wrong with the first season. Hell, Ash's first battle with Brock can make the reasoning behind why the first season is fucking shitty. Well, at least in terms of canon shit. Like, in terms of battles, for the most part, it's shitty. Like, I think it's okay in terms of its filler, but that's about it. Gary was the first rival, so obviously he didn't have too much to live up to, and he didn't leave that much of a legacy except for the fact that the animators made him OP as shit. I say that, but I don't even mean that in terms of battling, because you don't even get to see him fully battle until, like a real battle, until he fights Ash in Johto. And you're just kind of like, and what's even funnier, it's like, oh, and this is also to kill me. He's a rival who got curb stomped before Ash did, and then the way Ash loses just makes you go, so what kind of trainer does that make Gary? Like, Gary never really served a threat, because we never really got to see him fight, and him and Ash never really went at it. See, what made Paul's thing so satisfying at the end, and Paul's rivalry with Ash so interesting, was the fact that we kept continuously seeing them fight, and Ash getting curb stomped to hell. And it would piss you off as the viewer, because as much as people like to say they don't like Ash, you still want him to win. And that's the other thing I thought was kind of ironic with Paul. Paul gets a lot of hate, just not in terms of him as a character, but just in terms of people don't like his methods. Which I find hilarious, because his methods are way too similar to what a normal person would do in a Pokemon game. A normal person would go, oh, this isn't strong enough. I want a different breed. I want one with a different set of IVs. I want one with a different ability. I want one with a different gender. And if you're turning the one up and you're like, oh, I don't like the way this thing's moveset is going, you'll switch it out for another Pokemon. Paul's mindset is more to a real-life trainer than Ash's is, and people still give Ash shit for being an unrealistic trainer, for being like that shonen type of trainer. And I'm just kind of like, But you understand the paradox there. You understand the irony of it all, right? I don't know if people really noticed that. That's what I thought was funny. But yeah, he got curb stomped. Like, Paul curb stomped the shit out of Ash, and it would hurt you a lot as the viewer because it wasn't like Ash was dicking around the entire time. I think Gen 4 was one of the few generations they showed him training the most, where he was constantly training, coming up with new techniques and shit, especially when he was fighting some of these gym leaders. So you would see him like progress gradually. You're like, yeah, Ash is getting it. And then you'll see him fight Paul and it'll just fuck up your morale because he just lose. The only time I think Ash ever beat Paul was at the end. He drew with him in the beginning, and I believe, and he would have his shining moments in all the little fucking matches that didn't matter, like the fucking double battle thing and shit. Like, he never would win anything consequential. It would always be something irrelevant. It was also interesting because they had Paul go through his own set of development, whether it was with his brother, with Brandon, with Cynthia, even Ash to a certain extent, and that's what I kind of like. That's why when the battle ended and everything kind of culminated into this big victory for Ash, and they went out to meet Paul, it wasn't this, fuck, fine, I guess your way is better. No, I mean, that's what Soran said. I don't believe that's what their rivalry was about. It was just about them understanding each other and respecting each other's ways. You may not want to do things that way, but you can't fucking bullshit and say it doesn't have results. Ash was always faced with that reality from pretty much that second fight they had where he curb stomped him for the first time. And he was continually reminded that even though he thought that Paul was a jerk and Paul had the wrong way of doing things, as he was interacting with Paul more, he understood that his Pokemon didn't fucking hate him like Ash thought they would. And the fact that you couldn't really argue with his methods because he curb stomped the shit out of you like nine fucking times. The same thing with Paul. Paul could kind of do that, but he realized, oh look, he got the Chimchar to evolve. Oh look, he got the Chimchar to evolve all the way into his final evolution. Oh shit, he curb stomped me in the fucking in the league with the Chimchar that supposedly was too weak for me to train. That was a culmination. Now, granted, the only thing that kind of sucked about that match, if anyone noticed, at a certain point, Ash was just losing by an overwhelming amount. Like, Paul was curb stomping him until Infernape came out, and then Infernape was like, all right, fine, fuck it, wreck shop. And that's the whole point. The Infernape plotline is like one of the biggest keys to their whole development. Gary didn't have anything. He had the stupid Pokeball that we found out like an episode before the match fucking started. And then it was like, oh, this has such an emotional weight to it. And it didn't. I mean, the only reason why anyone really gives a shit about the Gary fight, in all honesty, is because Gary's been there since the beginning. So it's one of those fights that feels like it's like a long time coming type of fight. Like, you hear Gary give Ash so much shit, even though he lost in the league before him. And we have never seen him fully fight. So I'm like, you know what, fuck it. We need to see you, how strong you are, Mr. fucking 10 badges, get bitches everywhere. And then we saw the fight, and we saw Ash put in that work, and we were like, I think we all knew that fight was going to be good the moment we saw Heracross beat the shit out of a Magmar. That was a motherfucking accomplishment, and we all ran around in this fucking room like, yeah, it's going to be good. And then the episode ended. That's the whole thing. Gary's thing is more of a thing for the viewer, whereas, like, the thing with Paul and Ash was more of a thing in the series. That was like a character-driven thing, whereas for Gary and Ash, it was more of a visual thing for us. We viewed him as a rival, so we viewed him as a dude we had to beat. But because they never really interacted, it never really grew past that. So if you want to say anything, Gary and Ash is like a shallow-ass rivalry versus like Paul and Ash, which is like the real developed rivalry that the series should have had. Gary is cool for nostalgia, but like for all intents and purposes, I wouldn't call him a good rival. To me, he's not even really a rival. He's not even someone you interact with that many times. Like, and every time it is, he's on this fucking Ashy boy bullshit, which is weird. I'm like, where do you get this weird sense of confidence from when you guys are the same age and you got your fucking Pokemon on the same day? Like, and it wasn't like they show Ash in school, but then again, that kind of goes into the whole, maybe there should have been some type of backstory for Ash and Gary that would have fleshed out the characters more. And they tried to do that with the fishing thing, but the fishing thing is not relevant, is not enough to justify that kind of rivalry. It's just kind of, it's like a lot of implied stuff. I kind of wish they took one of the older movies and made it around Gary. That would have been an interesting movie just to flesh out both of the characters, but you know, that's just wishful thinking. I mean, they could still technically do that. I'm just saying. Actually, they could do that with the Serena stuff. But I don't want to get into that right now. Well, yeah, that's my opinion. I agree. Paul is just a better written rival than Gary. Gary is not even really written as he's written as an antagonistic character more than a fucking. He's like the Team Rocket of the rivals because he doesn't fucking do anything 90% of the time. He's just there to laugh in your face and tell you to hurry the fuck up. And then you curb stomp him and then he's irrelevant. Literally, that's what it was. He curb stomped Gary so bad that he just became a fucking doctor. Nah, Don, he became a fucking Pokemon professor, so I'm just saying. Paul's had a lot of development, there was a lot of understanding, there was a lot of cool morals in there. It was just an interesting retrospective to see how fans of the anime react to a character that represents them. Because I don't know if anyone wants to really admit it, but that's what Paul represents. Paul represents the real life player of the game. Because he acts closest to a real life player of the game. Because that's what we do. We trade our Pokemon like assholes. We don't give a fuck. It's a game. I mean, he's not that dickish with it, but you get my point. But yeah, that's essentially my thoughts. I probably will let you guys know what the next rival match will be because I'm still thinking about which I want to do. I'm still deciding if I want to do the Richie Harrison or fucking Stefan, Bianca, or Barry, or Tyson, any of those. I'm still figuring out which ones I want to put together because after Paul is like the culmination. Like, you don't get any better than Paul. Everything else is going to be insignificant. So we'll just see where we're going from here. But I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry this took so long, but it's out. You got it. Hey! Anyways, this has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game. Play to win, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace. I like to snap my fingers at the end of that video because it makes me feel special.